and they quit. And I'm like, what a waste. 77 account. But your account is useless unless you get like diamonds. That's true, yeah. Because now skins don't matter. That's true, you can get them for $1.
This one is all in like.
You think tickets to buy skins?
No, you don't buy skins anymore. Like everyone bought skins back then.
Alright. I wanted to recap one other idea as well before we get started today. Aristotle has this idea that we need to be habituated. Can anyone explain what that means? It's a word that we haven't really used before.
Have habits of doing something.
You have to have good habits. Why do you have to have good habits?
To get it on the mind.
To get not quite. Why do you need good habits to start talking with Aristotle about what the good
No,
habit
you're
is?
talking about Aristotle.
Talking about Aristotle now. Sorry? Helps you to be towards something like discipline. Yeah, but why do we need good, what kind of habits do we need to talk about the good life, what the good life is?
Self-restraint habits.
Alright, so he talks about how we need to be habituated. We need to be brought up in a certain way with good habits. What does he mean by that?
Be good civilians. Like,
We need to
obey the laws and like be morally upright.
We need to be morally upright,
Yeah.
yeah? And we need to be practicing that as we grow up,
Yeah.
so that we know what it's like to live virtuously, yeah? So we need to be habituated, we need to by habit be virtuous people before we can even start discussing what it is to live a good life. Yeah, and what was the phrase he used for people who weren't habituated into living a virtuous life? He called them
Useless weights.
the useless weight.
Useless.
Right. So can you imagine someone coming along to Aristotle's lecture? Remember, this is just a set of lecture notes that are being edited together after he gave the lecture, right? He didn't write this. So you can imagine someone coming along to the lecture, like Callicles, say, comes along to the lecture, right? And Aristotle's like, everyone accepts that we need to be virtuous. We need to be virtuous people. We need to be like kind to our family. We need to be courageous soldiers, etc. And Callicles is just in the back heckling, and he's like, nah, just take what you can, give nothing back, Jack Sparrow style, right? And what's Aristotle's response to that?
You useless weight.
He'd be like, you're a useless weight, get out of my lecture hall, right? But he's not interested in the Nicomachean ethics he's not interested in developing why virtue is the good life, yeah? He's just going to say it is, and then we're just going to talk about why. He just says everyone accepts that courage is a virtue. We all want to be courageous. So let's talk about why that is, and let's try and figure out how to be courageous. Does that make sense to everyone? So it's a bit different to Plato and Socrates here, in that he's not trying to justify why his version of the good life is the good life. He just says, we're all talking about this thing, let's figure out what we're talking about. Yeah? Sometimes this method is like, I think it's called endoxic. The word endoxa means something. Does anyone know what that means? It's part of the homework. What's the word endoxa mean?
I thought it was using
Eudaimonia was also part of the homework. What does that mean? What's eudaimonia?
reaching full potential.
Reaching your full potential. I like that. That's good. Or flourishing, human flourishing.
Going to the top.
Going to the top
beliefs or
in...
opinions.
Sorry?
Commonly held beliefs or opinions.
Endoxa is commonly held beliefs or opinions. Nice. When we're doing philosophy by like this method of investigating endoxa, we're trying to figure out what everyone really means when they talk about something the way we normally do. Yeah? And not everyone does this. Descartes, when we did it, he was like really anti this idea. Yeah? He's like, we should get rid of all our previously held beliefs and start from scratch. Does everyone see that? The Cartesian skepticism. That's about getting rid of everything anyone's ever said. Those things can be wrong. Let's start again. This is like the opposite of that. It's like, let's take everything that everyone says about this topic and try and figure out how it really works. How are we really thinking about happiness? We all know what the word happiness means, but we've never really thought about it as hard as we should, so let's think about what we really mean when we say that. Does that make sense to everyone? Cool. Plato's a bit more like Descartes. is like, Socrates is like, we should develop a concept of justice because no one really knows what it is. So we should develop it rationally. Aristotle's a bit more like, hey, we all sort of talk about justice, let's figure out what we mean. All good? Cool. We had Univonia as well. And then there was this big table that I asked you to fill in for homework. Can you get the table out and compare it to the people next to you? And we will check if you were right.
That one is when you, yeah, why do you keep it? It's only useful for the sake of something. Did you do it? Did you forget your book?
I thought it was the same.
You can have the league next year. Red Sea.
We don't want him to call Maguire. He's criminally proven.
Who?
Yeah, Maguire. Delete in his first game, he's got a goal.
Who's delete? You said delete.
Delete, I need delete. I used to say delight.
That is bro.
Everyone's doing the same.
So Maguire, alright, he's criminally proven.
Yeah, he's a leader.
There's a kind of play.
He's a gem from the back. He can bring the ball up
This one
forward.
doesn't count.
He's
That
a
is not done.
That's
Yeah,
yeah. Yes, you don't
Someone
need
says
anything.
Mr.
Just
Thomas.
I'll put
type
it in the
it.
margin.
He's the same as Van Dijk. Watch. When he goes to United,
But so no one's gonna mark
You
it.
can just write left hand
Straight it
down.
in.
If no one's gonna mark it.
You're gonna come back and know what it's talking about? No.
Yeah, but like I'm not gonna look at this side. I'm gonna look at this side.
Alright.
No, wait, hang on, wait, sir, hey, my color-coded notes. You think I'm just gonna
Doesn't
ignore
make
these?
sense.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go back to this. I never looked at work.
Your question was about this one.
What's his first name?
Yeah.
I just saw it this morning, sorry.
Sorry.
The virtue one.
Well, I think it was Greek.
So life of virtue is compatible with
virtue.
that one? Yeah, it just means that this problem is being a human vegetable is a perfect
You can have
example.
virtue with being sorry.
So like, let's say that you or I, we're obviously very thankful for yeah, if we suddenly went from coma, let's say we were virtue, but not living in good life.
I'll do you want Jacob
Same
Maguire.
thing, what's the other one?
You want Jacob Maguire.
It's the same.
That's suffering, right?
Yeah.
That's the Nelson Mandela thing I was talking about today. Imagine you say, you would call that a good life. So what would you have to add then to
You think it's middle name?
Dybala,
Bro,
I could find it in here.
Maguire, I definitely stressed out about. I stressed out that
So
ball.
that's
We
good.
could have the likes of
Yes.
Messi. We can take
Wait,
that ball.
And sir,
virtue is important, right?
Yeah.
But not just a lack of inactivity.
You're just better than Chelsea.
Or what else?
With Dybala.
Good life.
You're just
If
better
you're
than
active,
Yeah.
actively virtuous, and there has to be happiness. So those things. So he's going to say you have to be good luck as well. Question?
Alright.
Why do we think that life of virtue might be like good luck?
Some people might think that if you
oh, is it?
stick to ethics and morals,
It's like,
Why do you think
People think it.
So, just put on
It is dependent on those who stoic, not those who
clearly, according to
It is
the
something
virtue
of
is
what
that maximum life is
people aren't educated on their things on it.
Yeah, let's say according to he doesn't really explain it. Why do we think it's just virtuous? Why do we think it's
So much.
Virtue is better
people
than
in the virtuous thing seem to be like the good
Yeah, same thing. Except
they stick to the law and they don't do any harm.
Good, but more than that, they have all the virtues being like courage or kindness or
Yeah,
compassion or
quality.
intelligence, good qualities. So that seems to be like the best way to do life. I don't know life of money making, I think we understand what
To buy stuff, get happy, get pleasure.
Yeah, I think, well, I think probably that's the most prevalent view in our society today.
Do you believe that
money
is?
gets us
No.
Out of these 4 boxes, what do you think is the most?
Out of those 4 boxes, do I have to choose one? Pleasure, honor. I go for one of those 4.
Wait, honor?
Yeah.
But is it honor related to virtue?
Yeah, I think so. But the way he conceives of it is honouring from other people. It's not personal integrity. It's other people saying, I look up to you. So it's more like
Yeah, but if
respect.
other people look up to you, they look up to you individuals.
Not necessarily.
I didn't do it wrong.
Yeah, some people look up to drug dealers. So they're honoured like within their community, but I wouldn't say that's good luck.
So the first one is why people mistake it because they're slaves of life.
Yeah, I know that.
And then it's rejected because people who are impatient don't value they value
You write it up? Alright. Let's go through it all together, shall we guys? This
Yeah, but
table.
like you wrote it
I
fancy.
copied it from, you know.
And I'd like to discuss these answers as we go. Aristotle, this is chapter 5, says that he considers 4 kind of lives that people often consider to be the good life. Yeah, so the first one's the life of pleasure. Why would we mistake that for the good life? Kevin?
Because you're satisfying them,
Because it's satisfying.
and like you're not letting me. Oh, I know why not. Because you're living. There's no like reason. There's no like purpose. Living life.
Living a life of pleasure.
Yeah.
There's no reason doing it. Or there's no reason to live without pleasure.
There's no reason to live a life. There's no like end game to it.
There's no end game if you don't have pleasure in your life. Is that what you mean?
Like living the full life of pleasure. Just what's the pleasure?
There's no point.
Yeah, there's no point to it.
Okay, fair enough. Nice one. So just a hedonistic lifestyle is empty, you'd say.
Yeah.
Okay, nice one. Why does Aristotle reject the life of pleasure? Damon? Why does Aristotle reject the life of pleasure? Similar argument to Plato here, to do with pleasure. It says that pleasure isn't the good,
Pleasure isn't happiness.
pleasure isn't happiness, and so because they're not the same thing, pursuing a life of pleasure is not the good life. Does that make sense? Everyone good with that? Cool. Jeremy, the life of honour. Why do we mistake that for the good life?
I just wrote right I don't know.
Not sure?
Because I've written it wrong,
Yeah, so he doesn't really outline particularly much why we might mistake these for the good life. He sort of just leaves it up to us to know. So what do you think, Jeremy, why do you think we might mistake honour, a life of honour for the good life? Cool. Anyone seen, you guys seen Fast and Furious?
Oh god, those movies.
You guys know those movies?
The worst movies ever.
It's like all about like family and honor and all that kind of stuff, like personal integrity, all that kind of stuff. So it's like within their own community, this guy, Vin Diesel, right, is like the head of the family or something like that, and they all like pay him a lot of respect, a lot of honor. Or if you've seen The Godfather, the Godfather of the family, right, he gets a lot of honor from the people around him. Yeah. The example I used with Abdul just before is that you might be really honored even if, like within your community, you're just like the local drug dealer. Yeah. And this is Aristotle's problem with it, is that for Aristotle, honor comes from other people. It's dependent on other people, and he wants the source of the good life, like the source of goodness, to be intrinsic. You should be able to get it for yourself, and so he thinks that honor can't be the end of the good life because you should be able to get it yourself. Yeah. Now, you could come back against that and say, well, what if you just like honor yourself? Like if you have self-respect, maybe that's the end of the good life.
Genghis Khan had self-respect when he
Genghis Khan had a lot of self-respect too, so maybe that's a good counter-example. Again, we can keep going back to this Genghis Khan example. Gives us a lot of proof. Alright, the life of virtue. Why do we mistake that for the good life? Nick.
People act well to be virtuous.
Virtue's better? Yep. Good one. August, why does Aristotle reject the life of virtue? Good. He says you can be asleep, so you could be if you're in a coma or something like that, or if you don't really do much, you can still be virtuous. Yeah, you can still like be well disposed towards people, have an ordered mind. not do anything. Or there's another example. He says you can have great suffering as well as being a virtuous person. Yeah, do you guys remember that? Cool. So, for Aristotle then, it seems to be important that you have to do stuff, you have to be active, you can't just be in a coma. Yeah? And you also have to not be suffering all the time. He might not say you have to never suffer, but you shouldn't be suffering all the time. Yeah? Alright, we'll come back to that. Life of money making, he sort of tacks on the end there. Anna, why is it mistaken for the good life? Yeah, having money seems attractive. Yeah. Does everyone know someone who just wants to get what's the expression? Get that bag.
Get the bag.
Get the bread.
Get the bag.
Get the dough.
Secure the bag.
Do you guys all know someone who their aim in life is to get a bunch of money?
Sure.
No, throw it under the bus.
Why does he reject that? Why does Aristotle reject it? Reach?
Because it's not the end.
It's not the end, because money is extrinsic good. Yeah, it leads towards something else. Just like pleasure, money isn't the end goal, it's just a tool to get you towards something else. Yeah, the chief good. Yeah, we're going to discuss. Alright, I'd like you to talk briefly to the person next to you. Out of these 4 options, what do you think most people in Australia today, in Victoria, in our communities, maybe in our families, in school, which one of these do you think most people would subscribe to if they had to choose one? You have a look and chat with the person next to you.
I mean, obviously people today say really honor virtue and honor.
Do you know why? Wait, what? Do I have the money? You want to buy the things from me?
You know, hands apart.
Do you have the money? I want to buy You know why?
No, but actually buy it years later.
This is
200 billion.
You don't have it.
Yeah, so if I did 10 billion and I could do anything I wanted, like your money.
No, they can't.
What's the point of getting a fucking money?
10 billion.
Yeah.
Really, I'll let you use it. Whatever I would have. 10 billion. It's like all the money in the world.
That means to do
50 billion.
I need to
Jordan, if you know this question.
Yeah, so why is taking honor for the end of political life a bad thing? And is it a mistake or is just the end of political life not? The good life?
I mean, who thinks that honor is certainly it could be the end of political life. But who thinks that honor is bestowed by other people? The end of the life should be sacrificed. Yeah, like sort of the drug dealer example. Alcleus is very honoured by because of his political career. But Aristotle might say it's not
The reason they're mistaken, do people believe that the end of the good life is the life?
Well, he thinks the end of the political life is the life. He thinks politics is like the master science.
Okay, yeah.
For him, politics is just deciding what we should do. So in that way, politics for him is a bit like what we think of as being what should we do?
Okay, yeah.
When you
When you think about like politics in Australia,
I'll do it. It doesn't matter because everything got always changed. Everything got always changed. Better than anybody else on the radio.
Skips to saying like,
Am I wrong? No wrong.
Can you imagine Pomba just gets smaller? Pomba
It is like saying that's why the 20th century. It was the 20th
No, I
century
heard this school at Old Trafford.
You know what I mean?
We're running up and down.
We're gonna be better than you anyway.
as well, they kind
We're
of
gonna be better than you without
No, you're
doing.
not.
Bro,
We will paint.
you're underestimating us.
We have chemistry. We
You're
will paint.
underestimating.
Yeah, sure.
We'll paint you
What
guys.
He's also going to say that like
We will do you guys so dirty.
We're back to the top.
No, you're not.
Same as money, mate.
No, you're not.
Even Kevin, you know
But
what
yeah,
deep
he
inside
definitely
you gotta
does
hide it.
dismiss
You
some
know what
kinds
deep
of
inside you
pleasures.
back.
less
We're back as a team.
quality.
Yeah,
This is the start of all these era.
The
Start of best you finish in this season is third. Best.
Second.
No.
It's gonna be what City, us, Liverpool,
But even
Chelsea, Tottenham, Arsenal, huh?
enjoyment, he doesn't think that they really are.
Yes.
He doesn't think that the line
Yes.
Wolves will finish on top. That was enough.
Wolves, no, Wolves got Fernandes, a 31 goal player. 31 goal a season from the midfield. 15 assists. I just can't fathom it.
number one here.
Yes, we are. Goal.com said we're one step away from the
So number one, question one here says Aristotle is dismissive of certain kinds of pleasures. Aristotle's going to say, I don't really like this kind of pleasures. Andy, what did you write for that question?
I wrote.
What virtuous?
Virtuous pleasure? Yeah, cool. That's something that's basically on the money. Do you guys remember Socrates distinguishes between good and bad pleasures? You guys remember that? Aristotle's going to say something very similar. Yeah. Do you guys remember the example of the male prostitute? So just imagine an example of someone who is forced because they need to earn money, let's say, to prostitute themselves out, and they're involved in this kind of what Aristotle would say is a bad pleasure, and it's not aiming at the good life. Does that make sense to everyone? Aristotle's going to be fairly dismissive of certain kinds of pleasures because they're bad pleasures. But he definitely includes some pleasure as part of the good life because he dismisses the life of virtue that doesn't have any pleasure. He's going to argue that you need to feel pleasure, you need to feel happy to live the good life. Yeah? Cool. Number two was that question. Number three, virtue is synonymous with the possession of a good character. In rejecting the life of virtue, Aristotle implies that simply possessing a good character is not enough. I kind of just told you the answer to that question as well. So we need happiness, we need to be happy. We can't just be virtuous. Yeah? Let's take the Nelson Mandela example. He's a very smart guy. He fought against racism and then he got chucked in jail. How could he have lived his life better according to Aristotle?
And not fighting for racism.
No, not fighting for racism. I think Aristotle would probably say it was a virtuous thing to do. He would probably endorse
Like not going to the extent where you put yourself in jail.
not going to the extent where you put yourself in jail, maybe balancing a little bit. Maybe. But possibly something else. Later on, Aristotle's going to introduce this idea that you need to be a little bit lucky. You need to be a bit lucky to have a good life because you need to be able to be virtuous and happy, and that just doesn't always happen for everyone. Yeah? Circumstances can be different for different people. For example, you can be born into a family in Australia and your family might have like an average living wage and you have access to heaps of services like running water and electricity and gas and free education and all this kind of stuff that you're kind of just lucky to have, right? We're all lucky to live here, but it's going to be harder to live a good life as a virtuous person if you have to spend 2 hours every day going to fetch water from the closest water source so that you can drink and wash yourself. Does that make sense to everyone? If you spend more time doing these mundane tasks that are hard, it's going to be harder for you to be happy as easily. Is that true? What do we think? Talk to the person next to you. Is it easier for some people to be happy because they are luckier in their circumstances? Or not? Talk to the person next to you.
I'm pretty sure it's fairly unanimous.
Some people they don't deserve it, they get it. Like say a person that didn't do anything to that, he's evil, he brings a love, he didn't deserve it, and now he's happy.
We meant that more someone born with a silver spoon. Nah.
So it's a
by the expression ignored.
To them,
Some point this takes
Alright, hand up if you think luck does play a role in happiness. Hand up if you think no, not really. Be happy no matter what your circumstances are. We're all on the same level playing field. Yeah, cool. Interesting. I agree with you guys, but my wife disagrees with me about this. She went to Ethiopia for a while when she was a medical student, and she was helping with a bunch of people over there with a bunch of different problems in the medical clinic, right? And a lot of what she helped with was pregnancy and birth and that kind of stuff. But she did a bit of everything, and she reckons that they were happier over there, even though they had like ridiculously less resources than us, right? Like no one had a car. Yeah, no one had more than $5 a day in wages. Yeah, but she reckons that their life was significantly, as an average, better than our lives, despite the lack of resources. She reckons they were just living better lives. Can everyone see how that might be true?
Yeah. Be happy with less.
Yeah, and I said that I would prefer to live somewhere that has like good toilets and stuff. Yeah, because I think that would be happier for me. But maybe I'm wrong. You might want to think about whether that's
Because
true or
you've
not.
grown up.
Because I've grown up with it, so I don't miss it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't miss it if I was growing up over there. Yeah, maybe that's true too. Let's go to page 232. I asked you to read this section on naive relativism. Kevin, what was that?
All of us.
It's all of us. Yeah, it's basically all of everyone. Especially in Australian society, this is our default position when we come to talking about anything ethical. We say, hey, do you guys think that it's right for someone else to do this or to live that way? And everyone just says, oh, it's just everyone's opinion. You guys have that impulse? I said it when I was your age. You said it when you were your age. Yeah. Does everyone see how this might be a sort of naive idea? Naive means we haven't thought about it much or we're a bit innocent. Let's have a quick read of this. When asked to evaluate questions about values, such as, could a life of sensual pleasure be the good life, it's tempting to refuse to take a position on the grounds that no one can judge anyone else because everyone has their own standards and opinions. It's not really up to me. If they want to live their life that way, good for them. Yeah? This is a common response often heard in philosophy classrooms. It is not, however, a very good response. And I'm very on board with this box, just so you know. Although it may be true that there are a great diversity of views on, for example, the role of pleasure in the good life, we can make judgments about the persuasiveness of these views by looking at the reasons why people hold them. Indeed, one might argue that examining reasons and making judgments is the business of philosophy. So, as you work through questions, try to avoid this kind of response. If you want to say that ethics is inherently relative, you need to say why different positions have equal weight or can't be compared. Yeah? Because when we talk about ethics, we're usually talking about more or less persuasive reasons to believe something. Yeah? Now the reason it's naive is because usually people who are saying this haven't really thought through the full consequences of what they're saying. Yeah? So full-on relativism really doesn't distinguish between the actions of Hitler and the actions of Mother Teresa. Morally, right? They say there's no standard by which I can judge these or compare them. Yeah? And that's a pretty full-on thing to think, because you then can't tell anyone ever really what to do. You have no moral authority. There's no reason we should have any laws. There's no good way to live life necessarily, except maybe just what you make up for no particular reason. Does everyone see how this is like a full-on ethical position? Yeah, and we shouldn't just default to it. Moreover, if you write in your essays, I think this guy's right because everyone's allowed to think whatever they want and we should just all live our lives. you're going to be marked really badly. Yeah, you're going to be judged harshly because examiners are not relativists. Often examiners are relativists, but they just don't like it when you make a claim without a reason. Yeah, you need a reason. Yeah, does everyone see that? So we're not saying you can't be a relativist, we're just saying you need a reason for the ethical statements that you have. Make sense? Yeah. Cool. Let's look at these two concepts, and I'd like to write these down as notes as well because they're good terms to know. So, arit is the best way I know how to say this, but I'm sure it's pronounced some other way. It's sometimes translated as virtue, and in Aristotle's text we're translating it as virtue, but it actually means something closer to excellence, yeah, or how well suited you are towards something. So arit is virtue in the sense of being excellent. For example, Jeremy, who's a good soccer player? Messi. Jeremy got the right answer, just so you know. Messi expresses.
Is that why every Chelsea player?
Okay.
Hudson
Is that why we
is
beat you earlier in the season? We beat you in the season earlier. We beat you in the What do you mean by recently?
Europe last few years.
We got Europa League as well.
Just join the competition.
Let's have Dark Ball.
Dybala, Fernandes. We get you all 3-0.
So, an excellent car is one that drives really reliably, or perhaps really fast, right? And so you can have a rate if you're a car if you do your job really well. Yeah. So for Aristotle, virtue is doing what you're meant to do really well. Telos then is our purpose. Purpose or the aim of our function. Aristotle wants to think about our nature to determine our function.
You got that jealous of the place. You got that jealous of the place. How are you going?
We won the Champions League.
You got to complain about the Champions League until 2018.
How much? We should better than.
Don't worry. Our early games against you guys, we're going to destroy you.
These are our food. So.
Boys who didn't know how to learn from Manchester United up. You and they're like,
When you spell virtue, they're very yes.
So telos is our purpose. It's the end of our function. Aristotle thinks that humans are made a particular way. We have a nature. Our human nature means that we have a certain function, and fulfilling that function well will mean that we are virtuous. Yeah, we're excellent human beings. In the same way that an excellent fork has very sharp pointy bits and you can hold it easily, right? Because then you can use it really well as a fork. An excellent human should fulfill its function with as much excellence as possible. Yeah? Now you can be a satisfactory fork and be slightly blunt, and you can do an okay job of being a fork, just like you can do an okay job of being a human. But Aristotle wants to know how we can be the best fork.
Do you have
If
good
I can
forks?
stretch the analogy.
Mister, do you have good forks at home?
I have very good forks. If I was marking it on a Wellington scale, from barely acceptable up to outstanding, I would say my forks are very good.
Do you want outstanding forks?
I would love outstanding forks, but I'm happy with very good forks. I feel like I don't need any better forks than what I've got.
Do you have good spoons?
My spoons are,
Wait, what makes
half of my
good?
spoons are very good, and the other half are
The
soup
shape of the
spoons.
spoon determines if it's good, right?
I think so. I think a normal spoon shape is very good, and
What's
I think a
a normal
soup
spoon
spoon shape is a waste of a spoon.
It's too wide.
It's too wide. Can't get it in your mouth
it's-
easily.
Yeah.
You gotta rub your mouth. to get it in.
And it feels really uncomfortable when you.
That's right. It doesn't perform its function well.
Yeah.
But it looks good. Big one that looks like
I think you're supposed to be able to pick up more soup and then suck it off.
That's Western.
Like, like slurping
But
the
who does
soup.
that?
Yeah, who does that? Exactly. Alright, should we keep reading? We're up to chapter 7. We're going to skip chapter 6.
Mister,
Yeah.
the part of skipping the text, does the book talk about this part or not?
I can read.
The parts that aren't in the reading, no.
Oh, so that this book also skips those chapters, right?
The textbook skips bits we don't do. Yeah. So you can read them if you like. But a brief comment on the bits that we're skipping. So 6 is a discussion of the idea that there's a form of the good, right? Plato's idea of the forms. Do you guys remember that? The reason that we're skipping that in the section, I'm fairly confidently guessing, is that the examiners don't want us to get caught up in this idea of heavenly forms of the good, right? This rationalization of what goodness is in some sort of perfect, rational world sense. Yeah? They just don't want us to have to deal with those concepts as well as these ones. So you can read that bit if you want, but you can be pretty confident that the exam is not going to mention the forms. Yeah? Does that make sense to everyone? Cool. Alright, so 7 then, the good must be something final and self-sufficient. Definition of happiness is reached by considering the characteristic function of man. Would anyone like to read today?
Jeremy. Surely I get.
Standard volunteering. Anyone else apart from Abdul and Jeremy? They read a fair bit.
Kevin. Surely
Kevin, do you want to read? No, really? That's right.
Where's number 7?
Daniel.
I don't mind.
Yeah, sorry.
Can you read the first couple of paragraphs for me? That'd be good.
Let us again return to the good we are seeking, and ask what it can be. It seems different in different actions and art. It is different in medicine, in strategy, and in other arts likewise. What then is good? Where is the good of each? Surely that for whose sake everything else is good, is the good of each. Everything is done for the good of each. Surely that for whose sake, wait. Okay, wait. Okay, in medicine, this is health. In strategy, in architecture, a house. In any other sphere, something else. Yeah, don't worry. Oh my god. And in every action and pursuit, the end. For it is for the sake of
this?
Oh man.
Having trouble reading, boy?
something's wrong, sir. I can't read.
Wait,
For
what?
the sake of this, that all men do whatever else they do.
Give up.
Therefore, if there is an end for all that we do, this will be the good achievable by action. And if there are more than one, these will be the goods achievable by action. Maybe just highlight the word action somewhere in that. Because action is really important for Aristotle. Aristotle is about doing things in your life, yeah? Not just being virtuous or like meditating on a rock for your whole life. It's about actually doing good things. Or being excellent through action. Do you want to try again, Daniel? Or do you want to have a break and come back later?
I'll try one more time.
Okay.
So where are we up to?
So the argument here.
So the argument has by a different course reached the same point. But we must try to say this even more clearly. Since there are evidently more than one end, and we choose some of these, e.g. well flutes, and in the general instruments, for the sake of something else, clearly not all ends are final ends, but the chief good is evidently something final. Therefore, if there is only one final end, this will be what we are seeking. And if there are more than one, the most final of these will be what we are seeking. Now we call which final. Wait. Now we call that which is in itself worthy of pursuit more final than that which is worthy of pursuit for the sake of something else, and that which is never desirable for the sake of something else more final than the things that are desirable both in themselves and for the sake of that other thing, and therefore we call final without qualification that which is always desirable in itself and never for the sake of something else.
Nice one. Do you want to keep going? Yeah.
Now, such a thing, happiness, above all else, is held to be. For this, we choose always for itself and never for the sake of something else. But honor, pleasure, reason, and every virtue we choose indeed for themselves. For if nothing resulted from them, we should still choose of each. We still choose each of them. But we choose them also for the sake of happiness, judging that through them we shall be happy. Happiness, on the other hand, no one chooses for the sake of these, nor in general for anything other than itself.
Nice one. Is this clear? Do you want to recap this a little bit? Yes, recap?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So he's saying that when we do anything, every action, remember, aims towards the good. We talked about that a bit last time. And Plato says something similar. All our actions aim towards the good. But they can aim at them through a bunch of different stages, right? So for example, you might, you have a job, don't you, Abdul? No? I'm sorry. Who's got a job?
Damn.
That's right. And it's KFC? No, Fish Shack. Flake Shack. Flake Shack. Fish Shack. So you work at the Flake Shack because you want to presumably get money. Yeah? Does it make you happy to work at the Flake Shack particularly? Would you work there if you weren't getting money? You would? Just help out? You volunteer at the Flake Shack? Wow, it's a really good place. Just enjoy being there. Guys, that's a good job. You should go there. Right? Nice. So we might say that Anna works at the Flake Shack for two reasons, right? The Fish Shack. For two reasons, right? One is for money, and the other is because it makes you happy to be there, right? And when you get the money, what do you do with the money? Save it for a while, for an apartment, and for Sydney, yeah, go in there if you want to. Cool. And the reason you want to go to Sydney is because whatever it is, it's going to lead eventually down a chain of reasons towards it'll make me happier in my life. It'll mean that I'm living a better life. Is that fair? Can anyone think of an action that they've chosen deliberately that they didn't choose for the eventual reason, the final reason, that they thought it would make their life better, or it would aim at them having a better life, aim at them living the good life?
sleeping 5
Did anyone choose something? Has anyone ever chosen to do anything that didn't have the eventual motivation of aiming at living a good life?
Sleeping longer than you should.
Sleeping longer than you should. That's a good example. Let's do this one. Let's say that you go home after school and you're like, I'm just going to have a 20-minute nap. Right? Anyone, hand up if you've done that. Hand up if it lasted only for 20 minutes and then you got up and did your homework. Yeah, no one. Oh, Andy, well done. That's very virtuous and restrained of you. But everyone else, you probably slept for like 2 hours. And then you woke up and you're like, I didn't brush my teeth, I feel gross. Yeah? And you feel gross and then you're just useless for another 3 hours and then you have to go to sleep anyway. Yeah? Is that fair?
Yeah.
When you had that nap initially, you were aiming though at living a good life. Do you think that's fair to say or not? You lay down on the couch and you're like, oh, I really want to just have a nap, so I'm going to because it'll make me feel good. And if I feel good, I'll be living the good life. Is that true? No? You guys had something different in mind?
What about when you just wake up and you're like, you're not aiming for anything particular except more sleep?
Ah, sure.
Like you just wake up and you're totally out of it.
Yeah, sure. But don't you think that, like, to the best of your capability at the time, you're doing what you think will make your life better?
In the moment.
In the moment?
In the moment, yeah. But in the long run, you're going to oversleep, you're going to be late for school, so like...
Yeah, perfect. But it's really relevant because we live in the moment. Yeah? We always live in the moment. Like, you guys now are not doing, I would guess, if you're like every other human in the world, pretty much, you're not always doing what is good for you in the long run. Does everyone agree with that?
Yeah.
But you're always doing what you, to the best of your capability at the time, think will make your life better. So for example, last year when I was teaching in Wodonga, I had some lesson planning to do one night, and then I ended up playing a video game. You guys know PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds?
Yeah.
I ended up playing that for 3 hours. And then my wife got home from a really late shift at work, and she said, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, Alt-Tab, lesson planning. And then I had to stay up for another hour and a half doing my lesson planning, right? Because I had to plan my lessons for the next day. And Rocco was like, oh, this is so frustrating now, I've got to go to bed. You can wake me up when you come to bed. And so I wasn't really living the good life there. Yeah, it would have been better if I'd done my lesson planning first, and then played video games. And then when my wife got home, we could have had dinner and gone to bed, and it would have been great. That would have been better overall. But when I decided to play video games, I wasn't thinking about that. Yeah? I was just like, oh, video games, woohoo! Bang, bang, bang. Yeah?
We can't blame you.
You can't blame me, right?
Video games, man.
Video games are awesome, right?
Yeah.
And to the best of my capability at the time, I was doing what I thought would make my life the best. I was aiming at the good life. Yeah. Now, that wasn't a very good aiming system, right? I should have taken a step back and thought, I should really do my lesson planning first, because otherwise we'll have dinner really late and we won't go to bed for ages and I won't get to sleep. And really, sleep's the aim, isn't it?
Who thinks
Yeah.
like that, sir?
But exactly, so I wasn't capable of doing that. But just because I was mistaken doesn't mean I wasn't aiming at the good life. Does that make sense to everyone? Alright, let's talk about some other counterexamples though. What about when you deliberately do something that will be bad for you? Talk to the person next to you. Can you think of an example of someone deliberately doing something that will be bad for their lives? And is that in some way aiming at the good life or not? Is it just blatantly not aiming at the good life? Person next to you.
Outside.
But that would be a classic example. So is it a good counter-example to Aristotle? Because he says that every action acts towards the good. So just suicide act towards the good? Does it aim towards the less bad?
I guess.
So maybe it does aim towards good, even if it doesn't achieve a good.
Flip self-harm.
Yeah, why do they do that?
But then, if they like to get themselves, that would be
Mine aim towards their good because they like it.
Yeah, they like it.
It might be. People actually don't really like it usually, but they might do it because they deserve it.
He's just repeating himself. It's like,
Yeah. So if you deserve something, then like Plato would say, Yeah, Socrates would say if you deserve punishment, you bring punishment on yourself to make yourself a
Like
better
the
person.
top holes.
And in a sort of really twisted, unhealthy way, self-harm might like that. Does that make sense? But does suicide count as a...
If they think they have the birth rate, and that and they still aiming
Yeah, they're aiming towards something that they think is like better. Yeah. Do you think they're right or not? Yeah, of course not, right? So they're wrong, but they're aiming. Alright, what about altruism, where you just do something purely for someone else, not for yourself?
I don't think that's really.
Which is not real.
I think you do everything don't do it purely out of doing it purely for yourself. I think like even like some
Your fear and self-esteem.
some things you do to uplift yourself is like I think every action it makes you feel good about it. It's not one action. Because by doing that action in itself, you feel good that you did that action.
So is altruism possible?
I don't think so.
What if you did something for someone else even though you felt bad about it? Then would it be altruism?
No, then you
Like you do it, but you don't really want to.
it's true. You feel good for doing something. Even though you feel bad, so it's a sense of sacrifice. It still makes you feel good. So yes.
Alright, come back together. Does anyone come up with an example? Something that doesn't have to be good? Smoking?
In the long term.
In the long term doesn't aim at the good actually. What about in the short term? To a limited perspective? It's pleasurable, right? People smoke because they want to feel good and they think it aims towards something that's good for them, right? Yeah? Now they're wrong in that it doesn't. Yeah? Just coming out blanket against smokers right here. But smokers are wrong in that smoking doesn't long term lead to the good life, right? But maybe there's a case where, like, if you've smoking all your life, if you've smoked cigarettes your whole life, let's say, and you're 90 years old, right, and you don't have cancer, but you're going to die from some unrelated health issue, maybe there's a case to say, well, look, smoking isn't going to kill you because you're going to die from this other thing. You actually get a lot of pleasure from smoking and you've done it your whole life. Is there anything wrong with smoking in that instance?
I mean, you're still gonna affect everyone around you and the environment. Like
Yeah, and you have to make up stupid words like smoking.
Second-hand smoking is just as bad.
Is it?
Yes.
Really? I didn't know that.
Eat healthy.
That's why smoking's banned at restaurants now.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, do you guys know that? You can't smoke indoors now.
You can't smoke within like 10 meters of like...
You're like outside the shopping center when you're going inside, and there's like
Yeah.
a bunch of smokers there. It's like,
I think you're supposed to.
Yeah, you can't smoke directly outside most public buildings now. You have to like move away usually.
It's like
Yeah.
10 meters.
But it didn't used to be that way. When I was growing up, when I was younger, if you went to a restaurant or a cafe or anywhere, it'd just be people smoking everywhere. It'd just be smoke, like the places, restaurants would be just full of smoke. People were smoking all the time.
Mister, are you against smoking? It's free.
I don't smoke because I think it's really unhealthy. Yeah. I think people who smoke don't really appreciate the long-term consequences. Does that make sense? Now, sometimes there are cases, in fact probably most cases these days, where people who do smoke do appreciate the long-term consequences. And that's worse. Why is that worse?